with your new friend Ty.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Tea Party Podcast. It's a podcast where you find new friends and new music. This week I'm joined by an artist who was raised in the Blue Ridge Mountains, meaning of course he loves fishing and hunting, and he was even a game warden at one time. And he's got a brand new debut album due out in just a few short weeks. Let's welcome to the show Andrew Beam. Andrew, man, how the heck are you?
Man, I'm doing good. It's a beautiful day down here in Bennetts Point, South Carolina, and we've had a busy one for sure. We've been working on a music video for the single we dropped back last month, and ready to roll into the next single drop up to the album in April.
Man, you are a busy guy, and I can't wait to get talking about all of that. But before we get into that, I want to let everybody know that this week's episode is brought to you by Crescendo. It's a brand new romance novella by Rhiannon Kay. Crescendo is a dangerous love affair between a grad TA and his undergrad student, and you can get the paperback version of that book right now for just $12.99. Head over to teapartypodcast.com/book. That's teepartypodcast.com/book to get your copy now.
It's time to tee off with Ty and today's guest, Andrew Beam. Here comes the first four.
Okay, Andrew, we're going to jump right in here with the first four. Question number one: if you couldn't be in the entertainment industry, and for the sake of this question, let's say you couldn't be a game warden, what job would you have?
You got me on that one, man. I was going to say game warriors. That's really a dream job as well. Man, I think if I could go back to Clemson and I wasn't going to be a musician or game ward, I'd have to say I'd go into landscape architecture. I thought that was a pretty cool major that I had no idea that they offered.
That's a little bit different. I don't think we've gotten that answer here before. How about this one? What is your favorite song of all time?
That one's broad.
This one's
sure.
a tough question.
Yeah, because it depends on what genre.
How about this? If I handed you my Spotify right now, what's the one song you would play?
Man, I've been on a pretty good kick on Montgomery Gentry. She Couldn't Change Me.
Okay, that's a good one.
Great song if you haven't heard it. So.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, how about this one? What character from a TV show or a movie would you bring to life?
So that'd be a fictional movie, right?
Hey, if there's a real life character that you want to bring back, go for it.
Oh,
I promise. Questions get easier after these four.
Yeah, you're good, man. That one, everything I've seen, it's been pretty realistic. I think anything Yellowstone related would be pretty cool to bring, to life. I guess not to bring back, but to actually happen would be cool.
Okay, that's a good one. Okay, last question of the final four here. If you could have an unlimited supply of anything, scotch tape, guitar strings, whiskey, tacos, breakfast cereal, anything but money or a money-making machine, what would it be?
Peanut M&Ms.
There you go.
That's my go-to gas station snack, man. They have increased dramatically in price recently, so it's kind of
okay. So it's not just me that sees that.
No, man. So I tell you this right now. When I was a game warden, I could get the share size peanut M&Ms for $1.69 a bag. And that's the big bag.
Mm-hmm.
I would say within the last year and a half, they've gone up to $1.79. Most recently, they've been $1.99. Them jokers are $2.19 now at the gas station.
Yeah, I was gonna say I bought a pack of them for the first time in probably 2 years last week, and it was like $2.25. I'm like, dear God, I love me some peanut M&Ms, but come on now.
I give me a peanut M&Ms and a Monster energy drink on the road, and it's like $50. So there's nobody questioning my tax write-offs now for meals.
There you go. There you go.
That's crazy.
Well, Andrew, man, that was the first four. Thanks for playing along with us. But now let's shift the attention to you. Give us kind of the high-level Cliff Notes version of growing up where you did, and tell us how you got into music.
All right, so I'm originally from North Carolina. I was born in Statesville, North Carolina. I say I'm from Cashers, North Carolina, which is a small town up in the mountains that had one stoplight when I grew up there. Now it has two, and it is very much so booming as a vacation town. I kind of bounced all around the place. My dad's a preacher up there. My parents split when I was 4 years old. So basically I was back and forth a good bit growing up. And I tell you how I ended up in South Carolina. So grew up the majority of my childhood in Cashers. I decided to go to high school in Anderson, South Carolina at Westside High School. My mom still lives in Anderson. And from there, I went to Clemson University. And both my parents went to Chapel Hill, UNC Chapel Hill in North Carolina. So they were not too amused when the only school I applied to was Clemson. But it was where I felt like I needed to be. I went into Clemson. I was actually pre-med, and I had the grades to do it. And it's just my heart wasn't there. And I'm an avid outdoorsman. I've always hunted and fished pretty much since the time I could walk. And so I decided to go into wildlife biology. Kind of got captivated with law enforcement, and I became a park ranger as an intern for actually the Corps of Engineers. So it was a federal job. And it was during that job I was actually writing songs, playing around small bars in Clemson for fun. And then I got hired on full time as a game warden in South Carolina, and they sent me to Charleston. And guitar has always kind of been there. I mean, I played guitar since I was 11. Grew up playing bluegrass. My dad taught me how to play. And again, I started songwriting really early, late high school, early college years, just for fun. And when I got hired on by the state, everybody was like, "Man, what are you doing? You gotta go take this thing to the next level." Don't know why you want to, make poverty pay being a game warden, but at the time, it's what I wanted to do. And eventually, enough people started recognizing me when I was on patrol, and enough of my colleagues and people I work with were basically saying, you got to do something with this. And eventually, I believed it. So May of 2018, I left the badge and gun behind and hit the road playing music and never looked back.
Nice. Did your parents play growing up, or was there a family member that played music?
So my mom sings, my dad plays guitar and sings. So I come from a fairly musical family. As far as background goes, I remember the first time I ever picked up a guitar is actually the same guitar I play on stage today. My parents got that Martin for me when I was, I think, a month old. And if I didn't play it, my dad was just going to keep it. But I wish I had picked things up at 5 years old the first time I ever played a chord on it. But it wasn't until I was 11 that I fell in love with guitar. But that's something I even tell people now when people come up to me and say, my son or daughter, wants to learn how to play. I said, well, don't force it. I mean, the passion has to be there. I definitely came from a musical family, and they've always supported it, even, going into leaving 2 different career jobs in law enforcement, to go on this, swinging for the fences run to making country music. I don't think any of my family, my mom or my dad's side of the family, has questioned it one bit. I mean, they've been behind me the whole time.
Well, and you mentioned you didn't start songwriting until late high school, early college. Were you playing any type of music for people, in a band or anything like that before that? Or was that just kind of the time that it really clicked that that's what you wanted to do?
I've always really been a guitar player in bands throughout middle school and high school. And I would honestly say more on the lines of classic rock. I'm a Skinner junkie. When I came to Anderson, I met a good buddy of mine named Dylan Cook. And I learned that there's a lot better people out there on guitar than myself. And so I actually played rhythm guitar in that band. And that was really it. I didn't sing. I didn't think I could sing back then. I've got a long way to go, in my opinion, vocally. But I think it was kind of my senior year of high school. I wrote a song about, I used to have an 86 Chevrolet truck. It was a square body Chevy. And I love that thing. It was a retired school district truck, and my stepdad got it on an auction for $500, man. But to me, that was all I ever wanted in the world. And so my first song was actually about that truck. It's called The Girl I Love. And I sang that at Call It a Talent show. It was actually called the Mr. Westside pageant. It was a fun thing that all the senior class did my senior year at Westside. And so I did that, played the song, and I still play it to this day. It still gets requested. So that's really where it started. And I remember singing the stairwell in my college apartment. It's now not even there at Clemson. They've done a whole lot of renovations. But so that's really where it happened. I'd play for some buddies, and everybody's always like, man, you need to keep doing this. And I think just confidence is the biggest thing. But it took a bunch of steps for me to get there to really chase this thing full time.
Do you remember the first time that you went up on stage as a solo artist, just as yourself up there playing country music?
The first time I ever played in front of anybody was in church when I was 11 or 12 years old, and I was singing and playing. So I wouldn't call it solo. I mean, I had a band behind me. And then from there, it just kind of trickled on. I mean, I've been on stage, whether it's plays growing up or singing music at talent shows or whatever. I mean, pretty much my entire life. But it's kind of funny as far as the solo thing goes. I guess looking back on it, I didn't really ever think anything of it. But when I had my mindset to it, I played in an apartment one time, And I'll never forget at Clemson. It was the coolest thing. I was playing on a balcony of this apartment complex. And when I finished the song, people started coming out their balconies we couldn't even see, and they were clapping and yelling out requests. And it was after that I was like, I'm going to work this summer. And I was an intern, like I said, as a park ranger with the Corps of Engineers. I was like, I'm going to work this summer, save my money up, and buy a PA system. And I'm going to play live in college. That's going to be my work when I'm obviously not in class. And so that's what I did, and started booking some shows. And I don't think I ever really thought about it, but those would have been my first actual, live shows solo. And I played with a couple buddies of mine time to time, but it eventually ended up solo. But yeah, that's you asked me that question, but I couldn't tell you the first time, but it just kind of happened.
That's not necessarily a bad thing, though. I mean, just kind of growing out of something that you're doing organically is almost better than, you saying, okay, I'm going to sign up for this, open mic night and doing it that way. Just kind of doing it with your buddies, I feel like helps build that support system from really early on in your journey, right?
It does, and I'm fortunate, man, that those same friends of mine back at Clemson are still there front row a lot of times, or we still talk a whole lot on the phone about what's going on. And it's interesting to look back and go, man, would you have ever thought when I was playing, set my stuff up at some backyard party that we had, that things would be where they're at now? But I'm very fortunate to have that support group.
Well, man, I want to shift a little bit back to you growing up in North Carolina. You grew up kind of in the outdoors, and we've talked about it. You were a game warden, you're a fisherman, but the thing that kind of caught my eye in your bio was that you're a bow hunter too. What type of bow do you use when you're out there?
So I got a Matthews VXR right now. It's a compound bow. But I upgraded during the COVID shutdown. I think that was my anti-depression purchase. That was their flagship model last year that they came out with. But prior to that, man, when I was 12 or 13 years old, I worked on my uncle's farm, and he paid me, and I worked all summer and saved up. There's a song in there somewhere about working all summer, saving up for something, but I think Riley Green's got one similar to that. But I remember working, and I went to the archer shop, and the first bow I got was in 2006, and it was a Hoyt Laser Tech, and I shot that bow for 16 years. That's the one I literally just got rid of when I got this Matthews. Nice.
Was that was it the Hoyt a compound also?
Yeah, it was a compound, and I don't have a whole lot of experience with traditional archery. I actually had a doe tournament with a couple buddies of mine this past season, and a couple game warden buddies of mine and their friends, and one of our friends is actually my insurance agent, Styles B State Farm in Charleston. Yeah, exactly, man. He hunts strictly with a longbow, and he's bad at the bone, man. He's killed some monster deer out west with a longbow. So we got into a shoot off. You know how those things go, and you have a couple beverages, and after the hunt, and you cook, you're sitting around the fire, and he and a couple buddies of mine, we got into a shoot off with traditional archery, and it'll humble you. It's definitely a whole lot different than shooting my Matthews.
Oh, that is so true. My wife is actually the archery coach out at Eastern Washington University. So I get curious whenever I see that somebody's into archery or bow hunting, but those guys with the longbow, that is something else.
Well, and I'm intrigued now after shooting it, because it didn't take me too long to be like, all right, just like any other, alpha male, if you will, when it comes to the outdoor world, once you do something, you want to be good at it.
Yeah.
So I started shooting it, and I was like, I want to get good at this. So, I stayed out there in between one of the hunts one day and then that night, and I got to where I was hitting the target pretty consistently. And I've actually got a buddy of mine's giving me his recurve coming up, and I'm going to build a range at the house. And I don't know about hunting with it just yet, because I like being pretty surgical when I hunt, as far as clean, ethical kills go. And my Matthews is a machine for sure when it comes to that. But I guarantee your wife could probably outshoot me.
Sure. To her credit, she could probably outshoot a lot of people.
Right.
But man, you're not kidding. Trying to hold a recurve back at full pull is a heck of a lot tougher than trying to hold back a compound.
Oh, and I pull 75 pounds of my VXR. Whew. I can tell you that pulling 50 or 55 with that longbow I was shooting, I could feel where the let off is not in that bow the next day.
Yeah.
Feel it my shoulders. And that's another thing too. I admire, being on the East Coast versus West Coast. I think I think West Coast bow hunters are just a different breed. I mean, whether it's just terrain or the game out there is just heavier bone and tougher. But I mean, you get, Cameron Haynes and those guys out there. It's a different world compared to whitetail hunting on the East Coast.
I think that's true. And I think I blame it all on the rain. Not necessarily that they're tougher, but it's a lot harder to stay out there when it's been drizzling for the last 25 days.
And cold. Yeah, that's
exactly.
Yeah.
But you mentioned a couple of times you were a game warden at one point. What was that like for people that haven't, been around that? I feel like a lot of people assume that you're just out there busting up fun, writing tickets for people breaking the rules, but there's definitely more to it than that, right?
Oh yeah, man. There's a whole lot more to it than that. I tell people I've been very fortunate. I've had 2 dream jobs, and one was being a game warden, the second's playing music. And my heart's still there, and I still talk to most of the guys in my unit, if not on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. And I think that says a lot. And being a game warden is really a lifestyle, man. It is not a normal job, much like music. I mean, it's not an 8 to 5. I mean, you live it all the time. But I would definitely say it's not about breaking up fun. I mean, if you're an outdoorsman and you're a true outdoorsman, you respect the resource. There's nothing more rewarding than catching the people that need to be caught. If you catch my drift on that. And I'm not saying there's people out there that write tickets that's kind of like, man, I can't believe somebody wrote that. Like, I mean, come on, the kid's 16 years old and somebody at Walmart, or 17 years old, and somebody at Walmart messed up and didn't give him this license. Like, yeah, it's on him. But at the same time, like there's a difference in a teaching point and somebody who needs to get a ticket. But I can tell you that the guys that I work with, I mean, were top notch, and there's nothing more rewarding than going out there and making a natural resource case that 100% helped save everything for the next generation. And I think that's the goal of that job, and that's really where why everybody does it. They dang sure don't do it for the pay. I can tell you that.
So I've heard that. I've got a couple of friends that work in that area, and it's definitely a passion project, if nothing else. You do it because you love what you do, not because you're going to make millions. For sure. And,
my 3.5 years working for DNR here was a little bit different in Charleston because, being in that coastal environment. So we worked commercial saltwater fisheries, recreational saltwater fisheries. And that's including offshore now, jumping on shrimp boats, checking shrimp trawlers. But then on top of that, not only do you have the recreational boating, which Charleston, South Carolina, I don't know if they have advertisements on billboards out there. But anywhere on the East Coast, I think they're sending everybody here because it is the most booming place. It's growing pains is an understatement, but I think everybody gets here and they think they need to get a boat. And most people don't know how to operate a boat. And so we spent a lot of time dealing with boating accidents. And you try to work something game related because you're still expected to work deer hunting, turkey hunting, duck hunting, even though you still have all the saltwater enforcement plus recreational boating. So it was definitely a plate full, and guys, even in South Carolina inland, really, I don't think have a clue what it's like to work, especially in Charleston, South Carolina as DNR.
Well, and you mentioned that being like the place to go. I mean, even up here in little old Spokane, Washington, almost, the complete opposite corner of the country. I've seen Charleston, South Carolina vacation ads.
I'm not surprised.
So, I mean, they are definitely pushing people your direction.
It's insane, man. And I mean, yeah, it's just a couple. I think some buddies of mine started this Instagram page that it's got a bunch of followers now, but it's called Charleston We Fool. So yeah, it's traffic is pretty bad. I'm very fortunate now. I live a little bit farther north. One of our sponsors, Charleston Concrete, has been great for us this year, and I've been able to kind of get off the grid a little bit. I'm actually down south in the studio right now in Bennett's Point, but where I'm at, I've got satellite internet, so it didn't work too great for Zoom calls or podcasts. I get to shoot my bow a lot, though, I can tell you that, and I don't have to deal with traffic, which to me helps my songwriting out and makes me a much better person.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a whole lot of people that would choose Zoom calls and traffic over shooting our bow out in the middle of nowhere.
Exactly.
But here, man, let's shift a little bit and talk about your music, because you're still fairly, I don't want to say fairly new to being a solo artist, but you just put out your first song on Spotify last year, actually this day last year. We're recording it a couple of days before this drops. But then the pandemic hit. How much did that change what you thought 2020 was going to be like when you dropped that song in March of last year?
Well, we actually we just dropped the first single last month. So we had some earlier tracks that we had dropped coming up, but man, when you say early on the scene, I mean that's the truth, man. I was doing this a year and 10 months full time when COVID hit, and this time last year, so March 16th was really D-Day, if you will. Call it the last week of February last year. We were loaded going all the way through the summertime. We had a couple festivals we were headlining, and to not be in Nashville, and like you said, kind of a new person on the scene. I mean, doing that less than 2 years, it's unheard of to be headlining any kind of festival. But again, that's a testament to our fans and really family in the tri-state area down here. But 2020 went very, very differently than we had anticipated, just like everybody else. We were supposed to have dropped the album we were really shooting for June. So it didn't exactly make sense with everything being shut down and off the road, and still fortunate in some aspect that we were not any bigger than we are, because it's basically just myself and my producer, Joe Taylor. And I hate it for a bass player who was in New York City, Brian Stanley. He was, he got shut down for a while, quarantined and everything else. And my drummer lost his full-time job and then picked up another one. He's out of Charlotte. But we're very fortunate that those guys had not left their full-time gigs to be on the road with us. And overhead was fairly low. But it's kind of like a pause button for a year, man. And so now it's going on. May will be 3 years that I've been doing this full time. But I think everything happens for a reason. We wrote a couple songs during the shutdown that we ended up putting on the record. So the delay was not a bad thing. And then we dropped the first single, You Should See the Other Guy, last month. And so we're working on the music video for that. Just got the final edit done today in the studio. And then we got the next single coming out in 2 weeks. It's called Selma By Sundown. That's the title track to the album. So definitely a different year. I think everybody's experienced that. But again, I think everything happens for a reason. And so I'm not entirely sure what that reason is right now, but looking forward to hopefully finding out.
Oh, for sure. And I definitely want to talk about your newest single, You Should See the Other Guy. But first, I have a question. I was scrolling through your Spotify. I saw the first song that was up there, and I'm going to butcher the name, Wadmalaw Saturday Night. Where did that cover picture come from? Because I feel like there's a story behind that. Man,
I'll give you some props. You actually got that name right, Wadmalaw.
Hey.
So when I got put down here working for the state, the guy that trained me, Ben Whaley, he is from Wadmalaw. And I was fortunate that I went from a little tiny mountain town of Cashers to the small island of Wadmalaw. And I tell you, good people are good people nationwide, man. Or worldwide. That's one constant in this world. And that's really become a huge family for me, that entire island. And so the song itself has got a really neat story behind it. But that picture, so that is actually the guy that trained me's uncle. So that's Uncle Rabbit. They call him Rabbit. That's his nickname. And we had to pick oysters for an oyster roast. I'm not sure if y'all got oysters out there, but so we had an oyster roast. We went out there and picked, I guess, 6 bushels of oysters. And we were rolling back in. I just remember looking at him, and he was drinking rum and Coke at like 9 o'clock in the morning. He's
my kind of guy.
Man, he's the epitome of salt life, son. I mean, you see people with salt life stickers. I mean, that dude right there lives it. But he was straight off the shrimp dock for sure. And basically, I remember seeing that picture, and I was like, this right here looks like something off National Geographic, or somebody would kill to experience picking oysters with this guy.
Oh, 100%.
And so I pulled my phone out, and I didn't want him to know I was taking a picture, because there's no telling what he might, don't want his picture taken. And I snapped that from like waist height. And I didn't even see the picture till I got back to the house, and I was just scrolling through, and I was like, Ben, you got to see this. And he's like, man, that's awesome. I was like, that's going to be the cover for the single. So that's where that picture came from.
So give us the story behind that song now. You teased it a little bit.
Yeah. So again, my early guitar playing was backyard parties and for fun. And I would play in Ben's backyard, and we called them cook shed parties because he's got a couple cookers out there, and they do about 3 parties a year. They do a hog, basically a pig in the ground, and then they do the oyster roast chili cook-off, and then usually it's barbecue again in the spring. And I played those parties, and Ben said after about the second one I played, he's like, man, you got to write a song about what we do here. And he's like, not something that's going to be some big hit or anything, but yeah, just something that we can all relate to. And of course, I don't write anything that I want everybody to feel what I write. And so I was supposed to finish the song for the upcoming January party, and I couldn't do it. And much like a lot of the songs I write, if I can't finish them, I haven't lived them yet. And I apologized to him. I said, man, I was supposed to have the song done, and it's just not going to happen. He said, man, it's all right. Well, his dad, that's really his birthday party was the January party, but he didn't want any attention on himself. So he always said, oh, you ain't throwing no birthday party for me. It's I'll come to Oyster Roast, but it ain't gonna be my birthday party. And we found out a couple days after that he had cancer. And so it ended up, when I found that out, he had a 96 Bronco that he was getting lifted at the time. And the guys at my off-road shop, Paul Meadow 4x4, man, they ended up making special step sides. So when he was going through his chemo, that when he was super weak, so he could get up in this truck. It has 6-inch kit on it and 35-inch mud grabs. And that's all I needed to finish the song. So the song breaks down and says, if you ever get lost, you'll know where to go. Look for an old Bentzcraft behind a white Bronco. And I got to play that song for him one time on Easter Sunday. And he watched the video. So somebody took a video. He's in the video, and you see me past him playing it. And he loved it. He watched that video to the day he died, and he passed away that July. And
that's a really cool tribute.
Yeah, man. It's a party song, at its core, and he wouldn't have wanted it any other way. If you watch the music video on YouTube, look up Wadmalaw Saturday Night, man. It's straight off Wadmalaw, and the end of it's got a little tribute to him and Ben's cousin Paul Bailey, who was killed in a car wreck, and that was his Bentzcraft. So Bentzcraft is a kind of boat that's pretty much specific down here to the Low Country. If you know kind of deal. They're great boats, little creek boats, and they scream. They get like 65 miles an hour. So that's where that song came from. And what's crazy is I never would have thought it would have taken off. And my best friend from Cashers, who I hadn't talked to at the time in a while, said, man, I want to hear my favorite song. And I was in the mountains, and I was like, what's that? He goes, Wadmalaw Saturday Night. I was like, do you even know what that is? He said, no, but I get it. He said, everybody, no matter where you are, has got a group of buddies that drinks beer around a tailgate or has a backyard party somewhere as you throw down, just have a good time with your friends.
Oh, absolutely.
But you got the name right, man. It's you're the second one to I've talked to pull that song out and ask about the cover photo. So yeah, Rabbit's getting some fame, man.
There you go. Hey, Wadmalaw's it's a tough one, but I can imagine that was a little tough to put into a song too.
Yeah, it was. And Sturgill Simpson's got a song, You Can Have the Crown. It's like, I'm still trying to figure out what rhymes with Bronco. Well, I found out what rhymes with Bronco, so you just got to check it out.
Well, let's turn the attention now to your new song. You just put it out in February, beginning of February. It's called You Should See the Other Guy. And I want to get into talking about that. But before we do that, let's talk about your songwriting a little bit. Kind of give us the story behind how this song was written. You wrote it with Joe Taylor. You mentioned him already. He's your producer. First off, how'd you get hooked up with him? And then how'd you guys come up with this song?
Man, my entire circle is very connected. This whole story is pretty crazy. You can't make it up. I was playing in Ben Weather's backyard, and a good buddy of his, Styles B, asked what my plans were in music. And I said, I'm going to move to Nashville. I already had a roommate lined up and everything. He said, well, I got somebody you need to meet. And 2 days later, I was down here where I'm sitting right now. And basically, Joe and I kind of devised this plan. He liked what I was writing and how I was singing and everything. He said, let's do something different. And I was like, well, I'm down for that because I want to bring country back, traditional country. And he said, you can go to Nashville. He's like, but I really think that we've got the means to really do something big out of the Low Country. So I was all in. And back then I was writing on my own. It's definitely a whole lot easier to write with Joe being a producer because you go from paper to product almost immediately, which saves a huge headache on my end because I've got a bunch of ideas. They're not necessarily in the right order a lot of times. But you should see the other guy came about. Joe called me, and we've been working together for about a year at this point. And he called me and said, I've got this song idea. Have you ever heard Glenn Campbell's Gentle on My Mind. And I said, I'm fairly familiar with it, but what you got going on? He said, well, I want to write a song, basically the second half of that. So this guy's burned a bridge with all these females he used to talk to and everything. He's looking back thinking he's a jerk, but you should see this other guy who's perfect that gave this girl the life that I could never give her. And so that's a pretty neat idea, which is also a little bit different from most of the songs on the album that I haven't personally experienced. But I think that still in that creative mindset, you want to write something, even if I hadn't experienced, I want somebody to feel like I have or they have. And that song just hit everybody that we played it for, and like live shows back. We wrote it in 2018. We had to play it twice at every live show, and people were singing it by the end of it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a pretty obvious, first big single drop. Let's do that. Let's do this one.
Well, here, let's let everybody take a listen to it so they have some sort of an idea of what we're talking about.
Sounds good.
This one's called "You Should See the Other Guy" by Andrew Bean.
Shackled by any clinging talk. You always forgave me when I slipped out of time. You were always steady and I was never around. But you should see the other guy, ain't nothing like me. She done found her the kind of man that I couldn't be. Well, I did found Mr. Right. Lay awake at night and ask myself why. You should see the other guy. Rolled my sleeping bag up, didn't see you anymore. Blind to burning bridges and driving up the score. But these ain't tears of joy streaming down my face. She ain't in the bed I made. Man, I'm a disgrace. But you should see the other guy, ain't nothing like me. Well, I've got a guitar, I ain't got a PhD. Well, I strung her along, I ain't treating her right. Lay awake at night and ask myself why. You should see the other guy. She had enough. Well, I ran out of time. But you should see the other guy. There ain't nothing like me. Well, I broke her heart and he gave her a diamond ring. His love for her grows strong. Well, I'm fading out of sight. Lay awake at night and ask myself why. But you should see the other guy. There ain't nothing like me. He built a house and gave her a family.
one was his latest single, You Should See the Other Guy by Andrew Beam. And Andrew, that's the first single off of the upcoming album in April, right?
That's correct. So that one dropped last month. And we just got through editing music video for it today, so that'll be available very soon. The title track to the album, Selma By Sundown, is coming out in 2 Fridays. And then, so that's going to be on March 26th. The full length album, which is 11 songs, is going to be available on April 16th.
And you say the album's name, Selma By Sundown, and it's off of a track on that on the album itself. And I'm always interested in how album names are decided, because I feel like there's so much thought that goes into that, because it's really that first kind of look that people have at the album before they even get a chance to listen to it. How did that name come about?
To be honest with you, it's my favorite song on the album. And it's one of the ones I did not write. Joe wrote that song in the early 2000s. And the first time I heard it, I fell in love with it. And it's a trucking song. It's about this guy that's gone all the way to Maine and basically dropped his rig off. And he's coming back, just a solo truck. He's driving his bobtail back. And Joe used to live in New York and would commute back and listen to the chatter from the truckers. And they'd always say, if I can make it to Selma, and that's Selma, North Carolina, by sundown, I can be back to, whether it's your wife, girlfriend, significant other, I'll be back to you by dawn. And he wrote the song on the road. And, I think truck driving country is one of those lost things, needs to come back. And to me, just the sound of the song it's solid country gold.
I'm excited for the album. I mean, having listened to this song, having you talk about this song, and then having a chance to listen to your I guess the first single that you put out, You Should See the Other Guy. I mean, it sounds like it's going to be that real kind of, I don't want to say real deep country, but you know what I mean, kind of that over the road country that really just kind of takes you away to a special place. I can't believe that I just quoted that song, but just. But I mean, is that when you were putting this album together, was there an idea of this is what I want this album to sound like? Or was it just, these are the songs that I want to put out and an album is the way to do that?
It's really just a collection of good songs. I mean, we started with a couple singles here in the studio and we liked them. And then Joe and I started writing together and we both kind of collectively were like, let's just do an album. I mean, we're already here. Let's do it. So there's no theme behind it. As far as sound goes, the fact that they're all, I mean, it's hard. You hear me sing one time and you kind of know anything you hear, like that's Andrew Beam. You can't deny that twang. But yeah, man, and country music's definitely been in a weird state the last, I would say, good while. The pendulum's definitely swinging, and there's a couple different variants, if you will. And again, a lot of people are like, "Oh, real country is my pet peeve," but I think for the most part, I write songs that I live, and I don't think I'm super country until I talk to a bunch of people and they're just fascinated by how we live down here in South Carolina. But I think that it just traditional is definitely a word for it, but really storytelling. I think most of these songs, and I think all songs on the album just are very rich, and they're all different in their own way of how they portray different stories. And I think that's lost in a lot of today's music.
I think I would agree with you there. And Andrew, where can people keep up with what you've got going on? What are your social media handles?
So on Instagram, it's Beam Country. That's Beam like the whiskey, country like the music. And you can type in Andrew Beam and it'll pull it up as well. Same thing on Facebook. Just go under pages and type in Andrew Beam. Website's beamcountry.com. And if you go to any digital platform, Spotify, iTunes, just look up Andrew Beam and you can find all the music under there. And got some stuff on YouTube. So pretty much anywhere you can Google Andrew Beam country or music and it'll pop up.
Well, and we've got 4 more questions here. I want to first off, thank you for jumping on here. It's been an absolute blast and looking forward to doing it again in the future. But before we let you go, we've got 4 more questions, kind of like the first ones. Are a little bit tough to answer.
That's cool.
But you up for it?
I'm cool.
Awesome.
It's time for the final 4.
Okay, here we go. Question number 1. What's your favorite venue that you've ever played?
on the back of a sport fisher called Tina's Tripping at Edisto Beach, and we actually sunk the dock. We had so many people standing around on the dock that they were standing in water.
Okay, that's one of those like forever memories.
I bet you ain't got that one before.
I have not. I was gonna say that's one of those ones that like you're gonna have that, and the people there are gonna have that, and there's not gonna be anybody that's ever gonna match that one.
Absolutely.
Okay, how about this? Who are your 3 most recently played artists on your Spotify or Apple playlist?
Paul Coffin, Cody Jinks, and the Temptations.
Man, you were quick. Did you even have to look? Most people have to pull up their phone. You know what's up.
And I'm always listening to music.
Okay, how about this one? Question number 3. And this might be the same as question number 1 at this point, but what's your favorite on-stage memory?
My favorite on-stage memory was, so I opened for Aaron Tippin back in 2018, and it was in Sumter, South Carolina, and it was actually for a Veterans Day event. And I ended up walking across the street and talked to some buddies of mine that had driven from Walla to Sumter to see this show. And on my way back, there was a gentleman smoking a cigarette standing on the sidewalk, and he had a prosthetic limb. And I just went over there and I said, "Hey man, you coming to the show tonight?" I was like, "Yeah, man, I'll be there." He said, "I was in Marines," and he was in 18 years. I think it was 4 tours, if I'm not mistaken, and it was 4th tour he lost his leg. And but the guy was just a badass, man. I mean, I talked to him for a while, and so I look forward to seeing you. Well, I got on stage, and he was 2 rows in front of me.
So just right there. That's easy to spot.
Yeah, so it was like, man, I mean, it was cool, but the coolest part about this is that we had exactly 30 minutes. And Aaron Tippin is an awesome guy, by the way, and I thoroughly enjoyed hanging out with his road manager throughout the whole show. But we had 30 minutes, and no more than that. We were given very explicit instructions, and so we played several of our originals, but we ended with a song. It was written by Rob Crosby and Doug Johnson, if I'm not mistaken, called "Till the Last Shot's Fired." It was a Trace Atkins hit, and it's a tribute to soldiers. And you could have heard a pin drop in that room. And I don't get nervous playing live a whole lot, but that one, you didn't want to mess that one up, kind of deal.
Yeah, I can imagine why.
As it was, we obviously did it pretty good. Ended up getting the standing ovation on that one, but that wasn't the memory. It was. I came off stage after the show, and that guy came up to me and he said, "That song was playing on my ride home in the helicopter."
Oh, wow. Okay, so this question is either the easiest question I'm going to ask or the hardest question, but here it goes. If you could pick one thing for people to take away from this podcast and your music in general, what would it be?
Go check out our music and spread the word, please.
There you go, man. I like it. Like I said, either the easiest or the hardest.
Yeah, well, exactly. And honestly, man, I'm an old soul 29-year-old. I like boots on the ground, shaking hands, and spreading my music by playing on stage. I should have jumped on social media a whole lot sooner than I did, but at the same time, I'm just ready to get back after it. But in the meantime, do us a favor and spread all the music and be on the lookout for the upcoming album.
Well, heck, it sounds like you might be able to get out on the road here pretty soon with everything going on. But yeah, we'll definitely have to have you on here again, Andrew. I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely.
And guys, that was another episode of the Tea Party Podcast. It's the country music podcast where you find new friends and new music like Andrew Beam and his upcoming album, Selma by Sundown.
Go tee off on the like button at facebook.com/Tea Party Podcast.
This has been a Tea Party Communications production. Theme music created by Jesse Quant. Announcer voiceovers by Jay Gwynn. And as always, hosted by Ty Pisani.